Have you ever walked into a room full of people and still felt completely separate from everyone there? You can smile, join the conversation, and appear perfectly comfortable, but somewhere beneath the surface, part of you remains outside the moment. Watching, interpreting, noticing things other people seem to miss. A hesitation in someone's voice. A smile that does not reach their eyes. A tension in the room no one else appears to feel. You may have spent years wondering why you experience the world this way. Maybe you have even taken a personality test and received 4 letters. INFJ. But what do those letters actually explain? INFJs are often described as one of the rarest Myers-Briggs personality types, commonly estimated to represent less than 2% of the population. They are associated with strong intuition, emotional awareness, idealism, and an intense inner world. Still, this video is not here to trap you inside a label. No personality test can explain everything about you. 2 people can receive the same result and still be completely different. Instead, think of this as a mirror. We are going to explore 8 patterns commonly associated with INFJs. Some may feel familiar, others may reveal something about yourself that you have never been able to put into words. And stay until the end, because recognizing these traits is only the beginning. The more important question is how to use them without becoming exhausted, isolated, or trapped inside your own mind. Let's begin. Main part. Sign 1. You often feel slightly removed from the world. An INFJ can be surrounded by friends, music, laughter, and conversation, and still feel as though they are watching everything through a window. It is not necessarily loneliness. It is more like a quiet distance between you and the moment. While other people are focused on what is happening, your mind is already searching for what it means. Someone tells a joke and everyone laughs, you laugh too. But part of your attention is studying the person who stayed silent. A couple appears happy, yet you notice the way they avoid looking at each other. A friend says everything is fine, but something in their voice tells you the story is more complicated. You rarely experience life only at the surface level. Your mind keeps moving underneath it, searching for patterns, motives, contradictions, and emotional meaning. That can make ordinary social situations strangely tiring. You may be friendly, confident, and even charismatic, but sometimes your social personality feels like something you activate rather than something that runs automatically. You know how to participate. You know how to make people comfortable. You may even become the person who holds the entire group together. But after enough time, you need to step away and return to the quieter world inside your own mind. This is one reason INFJs can appear outgoing in one situation and deeply private in another. They are not necessarily pretending, they are adapting. And beneath that adaptable surface is often someone who understands the room but does not always feel fully understood by it. Sign 2. You reach conclusions before you can explain them. Imagine meeting someone who is polite, charming, and apparently trustworthy. Nothing obvious is wrong. Yet something inside you quietly says, be careful. You cannot point to a single sentence or action that caused the feeling. You simply sense that the picture does not match. Weeks later, something happens, and suddenly your original reaction makes sense. INFJs often describe experiences like this as intuition. But intuition does not have to mean magic. It can be the mind recognizing patterns before conscious thought has had time to organize them. Your brain notices small pieces of information, a pause that lasted slightly too long, a change in someone's usual behavior, a contradiction between their words and their expression, a familiar pattern from an earlier experience. Individually, these details may seem meaningless, but somewhere in the background, your mind connects them. Then it delivers the conclusion as a feeling. You receive the answer without seeing all the steps that produced it. That is why explaining your intuition can be so frustrating. You may say, I don't know why, but this does not feel right. Other people ask for evidence and you do not have any, at least not yet. Of course, intuition is not always correct. Anxiety, past experiences, and personal fears can also influence your judgment. But when your instincts repeatedly prove accurate, it becomes difficult to ignore the moment that quiet internal warning appears. Many INFJs learn this lesson the hard way. They dismiss the feeling because they want to be fair, logical, or open-minded. Then later, when the truth becomes clear, They think the same thing. I noticed it from the beginning. Sign 3. You notice emotional changes almost instantly. Some people need a full explanation before they realize something is wrong. You may only need one word. A friend answers the phone and says, "Hello." The word sounds normal, but the tone does not. You immediately notice that their energy is different. They are quieter, more distant, less present. Before they tell you anything, you are already asking whether something happened. INFJs often pay attention to the entire message, not only the words. They notice posture, timing, eye contact, facial tension, changes in texting habits, and the difference between a natural smile and a performed one. When someone writes, "I'm okay," you may notice that the message came after an unusually long pause. You may notice that they stopped using the expressions they normally use. You may notice that they answered the question without actually answering it. For many people, these details disappear into the background. For you, they can become impossible to ignore. This sensitivity can make you an unusually attentive friend. People may feel safe around you because you notice their discomfort before they have to announce it. You ask questions without forcing them. You give them space while still letting them know they are not alone. But this ability also has a cost. When you constantly monitor the emotional state of everyone around you, it becomes difficult to relax. You may enter a room wanting to enjoy yourself, only to spend the entire evening unconsciously tracking who feels uncomfortable, who is hiding something, and who needs support. You are physically present at the gathering. Emotionally, you are managing the atmosphere. Sign 4. You look beneath people's behavior. When someone acts arrogantly, most people see arrogance. You may see insecurity. When someone becomes unnecessarily angry, others focus on the aggression. Your mind starts asking what fear, humiliation, or pain could be underneath it. This does not mean you approve of harmful behavior. It means your first instinct is often to understand where it came from. You do not only observe what a person is doing, you search for the emotional logic behind it. Consider someone who constantly talks about their success. They interrupt conversations, exaggerate achievements, and turn every subject back toward themselves. Other people may simply decide that this person is annoying. You may wonder whether they learned to chase attention because they rarely received recognition earlier in life. Again, that interpretation may not always be correct. But your mind naturally searches for the hidden wound beneath the visible behavior. This is one reason people may tell you things they have never shared with anyone else. They sense that you are not only listening to the story, you are trying to understand the person inside it. You can sometimes recognize the difference between anger and fear, confidence and performance, independence and emotional withdrawal. But there is a danger here. Understanding why someone behaves badly can make it harder to hold them responsible for the way they treat you. You begin explaining their behavior instead of protecting yourself from it. You see the pain behind the person and slowly forget that their pain can still cause damage. That conflict becomes especially important in the next sign. Sign 5. Other people's emotions can become your emotions. You wake up feeling calm. Then you spend an hour with someone who is anxious, angry, or deeply unhappy. By the time you leave, your body feels heavy, your thoughts feel darker, your energy has disappeared. Nothing directly happened to you, and yet you feel as if you have been carrying someone else's emotional weight. INFJs often describe themselves as emotional sponges. When the people around them are relaxed and hopeful, they may feel energized. When the environment is tense, hostile, or unpredictable, they can become exhausted surprisingly quickly. This is not always a mysterious process. Human beings naturally respond to the emotional signals of others. Tone, expression, posture, and behavior can affect how safe or tense an environment feels. The difference is that some people notice these signals more intensely than others. For an emotionally sensitive person, a crowded room can contain dozens of competing messages at once. The person smiling while hiding irritation. The friend pretending to enjoy themselves. The quiet conflict between two people across the table. The pressure to keep everyone comfortable. By the end of the evening, you may not even know which emotions originally belonged to you. This is why solitude can feel less like isolation and more like recovery. Being alone gives your mind time to separate your own feelings from everything you absorbed. The silence allows your internal world to become clear again. Sign 6. Surface-level conversation drains you. You can participate in small talk. You understand why it exists. You may even be good at it. But after too much of it, you begin to feel strangely empty. A long conversation about weather, appearances, gossip, or routine details can feel more exhausting than a serious discussion about fear, identity, childhood, purpose, or the future. You do not necessarily need every conversation to be intense, but you want it to lead somewhere real. You want to understand what people care about when they are not performing for an audience. What are they afraid of? What changed them? What do they secretly want from life? What do they believe when no one is watching? An INFJ may say very little in a large group, then talk for hours when one person finally asks the right question. This can make you selective about relationships. You may know many people but feel genuinely close to only a few. And when you do form a connection, it can become extremely deep. You remember details others forget. You notice changes in the person's mood. You invest attention, loyalty, and emotional energy into the relationship. The problem is that not everyone approaches connection with the same intensity. What feels meaningful to you may feel casual to someone else. And when you discover that difference too late, the disappointment can be enormous. Sign 7. You give more than you realize. You notice what people need before they ask. You volunteer for the difficult task. You stay longer. You listen carefully. You answer the late-night call even when you are already exhausted. Helping people can give your life a sense of meaning. You want your presence to make something better, calmer, safer, or more hopeful. But generosity becomes dangerous when it has no boundary. Imagine that you have had a terrible day. You are physically tired, emotionally drained, and desperate for rest. Then someone calls because they are going through a crisis. Without thinking, you place your own feelings aside. For the next 2 hours, you listen, reassure them, analyze the situation, and help them find a way forward. When the call ends, they feel lighter. You feel empty. And instead of resting, you begin wondering whether you gave them the right advice. This pattern can continue for years. You become the person everyone contacts when life falls apart. But when you are the one falling apart, you may discover that some of those people do not know how to support you, or never intended to. The truth is uncomfortable. Being needed is not the same as being loved. Some people appreciate you. Others appreciate what you provide. Learning to recognize the difference can change your entire life. Sign 8. Your patience has a final limit. INFJs are often seen as gentle, forgiving, and understanding. And much of the time, that is true. You may give someone chance after chance because you understand their history, their fears, and the reasons behind their behavior. You tell yourself they are trying. You focus on their potential. You remember the good moments. You forgive the apology that arrives without real change. But while you appear patient on the outside, something is being recorded internally. Every broken promise, every manipulation, every moment of disrespect, every time you had to abandon your own needs to preserve the relationship. Then one day something small happens. To the other person, it seems minor. To you, it is simply the final piece of evidence. And the connection ends. This sudden withdrawal is often described online as the INFJ door slam. But it usually does not feel sudden to the INFJ. The decision may have been forming quietly for months or even years. By the time you leave, you have already replayed the relationship from every angle. You have searched for explanations, imagined solutions, questioned yourself, and waited for change. When you finally accept that the pattern is not going to improve, something inside you becomes calm. You stop arguing. You stop explaining. You stop hoping. From the outside, this can look cold. From the inside, it can feel like survival. However, there is an important lesson here. Strong boundaries should not begin only after you have been pushed beyond your limit. You do not have to tolerate everything until your only remaining option is complete disappearance. A healthy boundary can be spoken earlier. A need can be expressed before resentment becomes permanent. And that brings us to the most important part of this video. Recognizing yourself in these signs may feel validating, but awareness means very little unless it changes the way you live. So here are 5 ways to protect your strengths without allowing them to control you. Growth Shift 1. Replace perfection with progress. INFJs often carry a detailed internal image of how something should be. The project should be meaningful. The writing should be powerful. The plan should be complete. The result should reflect the full potential they can already imagine. The problem is that reality rarely begins at that level. Reality begins with an awkward first attempt, an unfinished draft, a conversation that does not go perfectly, a plan that changes once you actually begin. When your internal standard is too high, starting can feel almost painful. You delay the project because you are still thinking. You keep preparing because you are not ready. You revise the first paragraph while the rest remains unwritten. Eventually, the desire to create something exceptional prevents you from creating anything real. The solution is not to abandon quality. It is to stop demanding final version quality from the first step. Let the beginning be imperfect. Let the first draft be embarrassing. Let experience teach you what imagination cannot. A completed, imperfect project can grow. A perfect project that exists only in your head cannot. Growth Shift 2. Give your intuition real-world evidence. Your inner world may be fascinating, complex, and endlessly active, but when you spend too long inside it, insight can slowly become overthinking. You predict every possible outcome. You rehearse conversations that have not happened. You build complete futures around limited information. And because those imagined scenarios feel emotionally real, they can begin controlling your decisions. Intuition becomes more useful when it is tested against experience. Talk to the person instead of analyzing every possible meaning behind their message. Try the opportunity instead of predicting every way it could fail. Leave the room, meet people, begin the project, make the call, and allow reality to answer some of your questions. Your intuition can point toward a direction, but action is what reveals whether the direction is correct. You do not need to stop thinking deeply. You need to make sure your thoughts remain connected to the world outside them. Growth Shift 3. Stop waiting to be completely understood. Many INFJs secretly hope to meet someone who will finally understand everything. Someone who will recognize their silence, interpret every emotional shift, and know what they need without being told. That desire is understandable, but it can also become a trap. No person will interpret you perfectly at every moment. Even someone who loves you deeply will sometimes misunderstand your intentions, overlook your feelings, or need you to explain what is happening inside you. If your identity depends on being fully understood by another person, you will always feel unstable. The stronger path is to understand yourself first. Know what restores your energy. Know what damages your trust. Know what you need from relationships. Know which values you are no longer willing to betray. When you become clear about who you are, misunderstanding becomes less frightening. Other people's opinions can still matter without becoming the foundation of your identity. Growth Shift 4. Say what you need before you disappear. You may be good at reading other people. That does not mean they can read you. You notice subtle changes in their behavior, so part of you expects them to notice the same changes in yours. You become quieter. You withdraw. You answer differently. You hope they will realize something is wrong. Then, when they do not, you feel invisible. But silence is not always communication. Sometimes it is only silence. People may care about you and still fail to interpret the signals correctly. That is why emotional honesty matters. Say, I need time alone. Say, that hurt me. Say, I cannot keep taking responsibility for this. Say, I want to help, but I do not have the energy tonight. Expressing a boundary may feel uncomfortable in the moment, but unspoken resentment is usually far more destructive. You do not need to reveal everything to everyone. You simply need to stop expecting people to follow instructions you never gave them. Growth Shift 5. Treat rest as maintenance, not failure. When you are emotionally aware, socially attentive, and constantly processing the atmosphere around you, exhaustion can arrive quietly. You may not realize how tired you are until you suddenly want to avoid everyone. Then guilt appears. You wonder whether you are being selfish, distant, or unproductive. But rest is not a moral failure. Sometimes your nervous system needs fewer conversations, fewer demands, and less emotional noise. Turn off the phone. Spend time alone. Read, walk, listen to music. Sit somewhere quiet without trying to solve anyone's problems. You do not always need to earn recovery by reaching complete burnout first. And you do not need an elaborate explanation for protecting your energy. You cannot be endlessly available. You cannot become the emotional emergency service for every person in your life. And you cannot continue giving from a place that has already been emptied.
Final.
So, are you really an INFJ? Maybe. If you recognized yourself in many of these patterns, the description may help explain why you experience relationships, emotions, and the world with such intensity. But the 4 letters are not the most important part. The important part is what you do with the awareness. Sensitivity can help you recognize what others overlook. Intuition can help you connect patterns before they become obvious. Empathy can make people feel seen during moments when they feel completely alone. Idealism can help you imagine a better future when everyone else has accepted the present. But every strength has a shadow. Sensitivity without boundaries becomes exhaustion. Intuition without evidence becomes overthinking. Empathy without self-respect becomes self-neglect. Idealism without action becomes a life that exists only in your imagination. Your goal is not to become less sensitive, less thoughtful, or less emotionally aware. Your goal is to become strong enough to use those qualities without being consumed by them. You can care about people without carrying every problem they bring you. You can understand someone's pain without accepting their harmful behavior. You can want meaningful work without demanding perfection from yourself. And you can be gentle without becoming easy to exploit. Perhaps that is the real strength associated with the INFJ personality. Not simply seeing the world more deeply, but learning how to remain grounded while doing it. So pay attention to what your intuition is telling you. But test it. Protect your energy. But do not disappear without speaking. Support the people you love. But make sure your own name remains on that list. Which of these 8 signs felt the most familiar to you? Share your experience in the comments, and if this video helped you understand yourself or someone close to you a little better, support it with a like, share it with someone who may relate, and subscribe for more explorations of personality, behavior, and the human mind.